The meeting room on Nexus Prime Station buzzed with activity. Representatives from across the galaxy sat around a massive circular table that could have held a small aircraft. The walls showed holographic displays of star maps, battle statistics, and tournament brackets. This was where the most important military decisions in known space were made. Chairman Vex of the Kalthari Empire stood at the head of the table. His blue skin gleamed under the artificial lights, and his forearms moved gracefully as he spoke. For 300 years he had overseen these war games. They were more than just competitions. They decided who controlled trade routes, who got the best planets, and who held power in the galaxy. Welcome, honored delegates, to the 847th Galactic War Games Committee meeting, Vex announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. Today we finalize the participants for this cycle's competitions. Around the table sat the usual suspects. Admiral Koth from the Zenthi Federation adjusted his transparent helmet. His people could shift between dimensions, making them nearly impossible to fight. They had won the last 12 tournaments in a row. Next to him, Ambassador Yila of the Moran Collective closed her 6 eyes and spoke without moving her mouth. Her words appeared directly in everyone's minds. The collective is ready to demonstrate our mental superiority once again. Her people could read thoughts and coordinate perfectly in battle. General Rax of the Alderaan Republic cracked his knuckles. Each finger was twice the size of a human thumb. The Alderaans had spent centuries perfecting their genetics. Every soldier in their army was stronger, faster, and smarter than their original species. 12 other major powers were represented around the table. The Vorthak with their tentacled war machines, the crystalline hierarchy with their energy-based weapons, the Hive Queens with their swarms of biological fighters. Each had their specialty, their advantage, their claim to military superiority. These war games were serious business. Real ships, real weapons, but with safety protocols that prevented actual death. Winners got mining rights to entire systems. Losers had to accept unfavorable trade agreements. It was warfare without the mess of actual war. The rules remain unchanged, Vex continued. Energy weapons only. No kinetic projectiles, no chemical explosives. All battles will be monitored by our AI systems to ensure fair play and proper tactical display. The delegates nodded. These rules had been in place for centuries. They ensured that wars were won by superior technology, better strategy, and advanced thinking, not by primitive brutality. Now, Vex said, we have one new applicant for this cycle. He touched a control panel, and a hologram appeared above the table. It showed a small blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. Earth, he announced. 3rd planet in the Sol system. The inhabitants call themselves humans. A ripple of amusement went around the table. Admiral Koth's helmet shimmered as he chuckled. Humans? Are these not the primitives who only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 Earth years ago? The same, Vex confirmed. They submitted an application through proper diplomatic channels. Their technology level is basic. Crude nuclear fusion drives, simple laser weapons. No dimensional manipulation, no psionic abilities, no genetic enhancement programs. Ambassador Yila's mental voice carried hints of laughter. Why would such a primitive species want to participate? Do they not understand the level of competition? General, Rax leaned forward, his enhanced muscles rippling. Perhaps they seek to learn from their betters. There is honor in acknowledging one's limitations. The other delegates murmured agreement. It was actually refreshing to see a young species show proper respect by participating despite their obvious disadvantages. Most new civilizations were too proud to enter competitions they could not win. There is one more thing, Vex said. They are already here. Before anyone could ask what he meant, the main doors to the chamber slid open with a soft hiss. A group of humans walked in, and immediately the atmosphere in the room changed. The first thing the delegates noticed was how small they were. Humans stood only about 2 meters tall, much shorter than most galactic species. They had no visible armor, no intimidating physical features, no obvious technological enhancements. The second thing they noticed was the noise. Wow, this place is fancy, said the human in front, looking around the chamber with obvious appreciation. Daeho, check out those holograms. Think they have games on those things? Focus, Hyunwoo, replied another human. We are supposed to be making a good impression. I am making a good impression. I said the place was fancy. The human leading. The group stepped forward and gave what appeared to be a respectful bow. He was average height for his species, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to find everything amusing. Honored chairman and delegates, he said. I am Captain Daeho Kim of the Terran Defense Force. Thank you for allowing us to participate in your war games. Vex studied the human captain. There was something different about these beings. Most species that appeared before the committee showed proper awe and nervousness. These humans seemed relaxed, almost casual. Captain Kim, Vex replied formally. Welcome to Nexus Prime. I trust your journey was comfortable. Oh, it was great, Daeho said. Our transport ship has this amazing coffee maker that Jin A fixed last month. Turns out if you rewire the waste recycling system, you can get much better pressure for the brewing process. Several delegates exchanged glances. They had not expected the conversation to turn to beverage preparation and waste management. We have reviewed your military specifications, Admiral Koth interjected. Your weapons technology appears to rely heavily on projectile-based systems. You do understand that such primitive methods are not permitted in our competitions? Sure, no problem, Daeho replied cheerfully. We brought our laser rifles and plasma cannons. Though between you and me, I kind of miss the good old-fashioned explosives. There is something satisfying about the way things go boom, you know? Delegates definitely did not know. Warfare was about precision, strategy, and technological superiority, not about things going boom. Perhaps, suggested General Rax, you would prefer to observe this cycle's games rather than participate directly. It would give you valuable experience for future competitions. That is very kind, said Daeho, but we are here to compete. My crew has been looking forward to this for months. Right, team? The other humans nodded enthusiastically. One of them, a female with short hair, raised her hand. Captain, are we allowed to modify our equipment between matches? I have some ideas for improving our energy weapons. What kind of improvements, Sergeant Moon? Daeho asked. Well, I was thinking we could increase the thermal output and maybe add some kind of dispersal system. Make the beams spread out more, create bigger areas of effect. The delegates listened to this exchange with growing confusion. The humans were discussing ways to make their weapons less precise and more destructive. This went against everything the war games represented. Chairman Vex decided to move the meeting along. Very well, Captain Kim. Your people will be assigned to Battle Group 7. The first competition begins in 3 standard days. A planetary assault scenario. You will be briefed on the specific rules and objectives tomorrow. Sounds exciting, Daeho said. What kind of planet are we assaulting? A standard temperate world with varied terrain. Urban areas, forests, mountains, rivers. Any restrictions on what we can do to the environment? Vex paused. This was not a question anyone had ever asked before. The simulation includes environmental damage calculations, but there are no specific restrictions. Why do you ask? Just curious, Daeho replied with a smile that somehow made several delegates feel uneasy. We like to understand our operating parameters. As the humans filed out of the chamber, their voices could be heard discussing something about controlled burns and making sure we pack enough gear for proper area denial. When the doors closed behind them, the committee sat in silence for a moment. Well, said Ambassador Yila finally, her mental voice uncertain. They seem enthusiastic. Primitive enthusiasm, Admiral Koth corrected. They will learn quickly that modern warfare requires sophistication and precision. General Rax nodded. Perhaps it will be educational for all involved. The humans will gain valuable experience, and we will have easy victories to boost morale. Chairman Vex was not entirely convinced, but he had overseen 846 previous war games. He had seen every type of military strategy, every possible approach to combat. How much trouble could one small group of primitive humans possibly cause? Outside in the Station corridors, Captain Dae-ho Kim and his team made their way toward their assigned quarters. They walked past shops, restaurants, and other species going about their business. "So?" said Sergeant Jin-A Moon. "What do you think, Captain? Can we win this thing?" "Jinny," Dae-ho replied, his grin widening. "I think we are going to have a lot of fun finding out." Behind them, something in their equipment bags made a soft beeping sound. Several aliens in the corridor turned to look, but the humans just kept walking and laughing about something involving fire and proper tactical applications. The 847th Galactic War Games were about to begin, and nobody was prepared for what the humans had in mind. The simulation chamber on Nexus Prime was the size of a small moon. Advanced holographic technology created perfect replicas of planets, complete with weather patterns, gravity variations, and realistic terrain. For the first war game, the committee had chosen a classic scenario: planetary assault on a heavily defended world. In the observation deck, delegates from 17 species watched their screens with interest. Each had their favorites to win. The Zenthi Federation was the obvious choice, with their phase warriors who could slip between dimensions. The Moran Collective ran a close second with their mind-linked battle groups. The Alderaan Republic always performed well with their enhanced super soldiers. Down in the preparation bays, each team made their final checks. The Zenthi warriors meditated as their bodies flickered in and out of visible reality. The Moran soldiers stood in perfect silence, sharing thoughts without words. The Alderaans tested their enhanced reflexes and superior strength. In Bay 7, the humans were having what could only be described as a party. "Hyunwoo, did you remember to pack the good stuff?" called Lieutenant Hyunwoo Park to his squad members. "Define good stuff," replied Corporal Jinny Moon, checking her equipment pack. "You know, the fun things, the ones that make pretty colors when they burn." "Oh, those. Yeah, I packed plenty, plus some extras I made from the ration supplies." "Captain." Dae-ho Kim walked among his people, noting their relaxed attitude. Other teams looked like they were preparing for serious military operations. His team looked like they were getting ready for a camping trip where everything might catch fire. "Remember, people," he announced, "the rules say no chemical explosives, but they never said anything about improvised thermal devices." "What about the napalm substitute I made from cooking oil and soap?" asked Private Min Ho Yoon. "That is not technically an explosive," Dae-ho replied thoughtfully. "It just burns really, really well." "And the thermite mixture? Also not an explosive, just gets very hot very fast." The humans grinned at each other. They had spent 3 days studying the rule book and finding creative interpretations. Technically, they were following every regulation. The fact that their equipment could still level city blocks was just good engineering. In the observation deck, Chairman Vex activated the communication system. "All teams, the simulation will begin in 60 seconds. Your objective is to capture and hold the planetary capital. Standard rules apply. Energy weapons only. Victory conditions include elimination of enemy forces or successful occupation of target zones." The holographic planet materialized around the competing teams. It was a beautiful world with green forests, blue oceans, and a large city situated on a central continent. Perfect for showcasing advanced military tactics. The Zenthi Federation materialized their troops in a precise formation outside the city. Their phase warriors immediately began shifting between dimensions, becoming nearly impossible to target as they advanced with calculated precision. The Moran Collective deployed in 3 separate groups that moved with perfect coordination. Their soldiers shared every thought, every observation, creating a flawless network of information and response. The Alderaan Republic landed their enhanced troops in strategic positions around the city perimeter. Each soldier was capable of lifting small vehicles and running faster than most species could think. The other teams used various combinations of advanced technology, superior firepower, and sophisticated tactics. It was a textbook display of modern warfare. Then the humans appeared. They materialized in a cluster near what looked like a chemical processing plant on the outskirts of the city. Instead of immediately forming battle lines or seeking strategic positions, they did something that confused every observer in the station. They started laughing. "Oh, this is perfect," Hyunwoo called out over the communication channel. Jin'e, look at all these lovely industrial facilities. Think they have any good combustible materials? Only one way to find out, Jin'e replied, pulling what appeared to be a standard plasma torch from her pack. Race you to the fuel depot. The human squad began running directly toward the city center, completely ignoring basic tactical doctrine. They moved in a loose formation that would have horrified any military academy instructor, chattering constantly over open communications. Remember that time back on Earth when we accidentally started that forest fire during training? Someone called out. Accidentally, replied another voice. I thought that was on purpose. Everything is on purpose if you plan it right. In the observation deck, the delegates watched in growing confusion as the human squad reached the first, defensive positions. The city's automated defense systems activated, sending streams of energy fire toward the approaching humans. Instead of taking cover or deploying countermeasures, the humans did something unprecedented. They spread out and began throwing objects that created large, bright explosions on impact. What are those devices? Admiral Koth asked, studying his screen. According to our sensors, replied the monitoring AI, they appear to be improvised. Incendiary devices created from standard ration components and maintenance supplies. That is impossible. The rules clearly state no chemical explosives. Technically correct, Admiral. These are not explosives. They are rapid combustion devices that achieve similar effects through thermal reaction rather than detonation. The human advance continued toward the city center. Everywhere they went, fires sprang up. Not small controlled fires, but large, spreading blazes that seemed to have a life of their own. The humans moved through the flames as if they were walking through a garden, still laughing and making jokes. Yunwu, came Jin'e's voice over the comm. Remember what I said about improving our energy weapons? The thermal output modifications? Yeah, what about them? Watch this. Jin'e raised her modified plasma rifle and fired at a building. Instead of creating a precise hole, the beam spread out into a wide cone of superheated energy that set the entire structure ablaze. The fire began spreading to neighboring buildings immediately. Nice work, Hyunwoo replied. Think you can do the whole block? Give me 30 seconds. The other competing teams found themselves facing an entirely unexpected challenge. The Zenthi phase warriors discovered that their dimensional shifting abilities did not work well when everything around them was on fire. Apparently, flames existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. When one phase warrior tried to ambush the humans by materializing behind them, he appeared directly in the middle of a thermite reaction that Jin'e had just ignited. You cannot phase through fire, can you, fancy friend? Hyunwoo called out cheerfully as the Zenthi warrior frantically tried to put out his smoking equipment. The Moran Collective's mind-linked coordination began breaking down as their soldiers encountered something they had never experienced. Opponents, whose thoughts were so chaotic and unpredictable that they actually caused psychic feedback. Captain, one Moran soldier reported telepathically, I cannot read the human minds. They are thinking about 17 different things simultaneously, and none of them make tactical sense. What are they thinking about? Fire, mostly. Also something called bacon, and whether it would be possible to cook food using their weapons. One of them is composing what appears to be a song about explosions. The Alderaan Republic's enhanced soldiers found that their superior physical abilities were less useful when fighting opponents who seemed perfectly willing to set themselves on fire if it meant taking enemies with them. This is not normal combat behavior, General Rax muttered, watching his troops retreat from a burning district where humans were somehow fighting effectively while their own equipment smoldered. As the battle progressed, the humans continued their advance toward the city center. They moved through a landscape that now resembled the aftermath of a volcanic eruption, still maintaining their casual conversation. Minho, did you bring the special project? Daeho asked. You mean the thing that burns underwater? That is, the one. Oh yeah, definitely. Though I am not sure why we would need it on a land battle. You never know. Maybe there is a lake we need to cross. The human squad reached the central plaza, where the other teams had established their final defensive positions. It should have been the climactic battle of the war game, with advanced alien forces using their superior technology and tactics to hold strategic positions. Instead, the humans did something that broke every military protocol in known galactic history. They threw a party. Last one to the objective buys drinks when we get back to the ship, Hyunwoo announced, pulling out what appeared to be a standard demolition charge. That is not fair. You got a head start, Jin-A protested, igniting her own improvised explosive device. The final assault on the city center looked less like a military operation and more like a celebration where everything happened to be on fire. The humans moved between the defensive positions while laughing, joking, and creating increasingly large thermal events. When the simulation ended 30 minutes later, the city was gone. Not captured, not occupied, but completely consumed by fires that were still spreading across the continental landmass. In the observation deck, 17 species sat in stunned silence. Did they win? Someone finally asked. The monitoring AI processed the question. Technically, yes. All opposing forces have been eliminated or have withdrawn from the combat zone. The humans have successfully occupied the target area. But there is no target area left, Admiral, Koth pointed out. That is correct. However, the victory conditions did not specify that the target area needed to remain intact. Chairman Vex stared at the screens, showing a planet that now looked like it was experiencing a global warming event. How do we score this? According to our analysis, the AI replied, the humans achieved complete victory in record time using tactics that do not appear in any military database. Down in Base 7, the human team was celebrating their first galactic victory by sharing drinks and discussing improvements for next time. Think we used too much incendiary material? Daeho asked. Nah, replied Jin-A. If anything, we could have used more. Did you see how pretty everything looked when it was burning? The 847th Galactic War Games had officially begun, and nobody in the galaxy was prepared for what came next. 6 months had passed since the planetary assault incident. The Galactic War Games Committee had spent most of that time trying to figure out what had happened. Engineers studied the battle recordings. Psychologists analyzed human behavior patterns. Military strategists attempted to understand tactics that seemed to involve setting everything on fire while laughing. The official report concluded that the humans had achieved victory through unconventional thermal warfare applications and unprecedented disregard for personal safety. The unofficial report, which Chairman Vex kept locked in his private files, simply said, they turned warfare into some kind of burning festival and somehow won. Now the humans were back for the void. Combat exercises. These battles took place in the vacuum of space where fire could not exist. The committee felt confident that this environment would neutralize the human advantage. Admiral Sunmi Choi commanded the human fleet from the bridge of a ship that looked like it had been assembled by enthusiastic amateurs. The hull was covered, with improvised modifications, extra antennas, and what appeared to be additional fuel tanks welded directly to the outer armor. Sunmi, called Captain Boram Lee from the navigation station. The enemy fleet is moving into formation. Should we deploy according to standard fleet doctrine? Sunmi studied the tactical display showing the approaching enemy forces. The Kalthari Empire had brought their legendary doom spheres, massive vessels designed to inspire terror through their imposing size and advanced weaponry. Each sphere was the size of a small city and equipped with reality-warping cannons that could tear holes in space itself. Standard doctrine sounds boring, Sunmi replied. What did we bring for this fight? Well, we have the usual energy weapons, improved shield systems, and those modifications that Unji made to our engines, Boram reported. What kind of modifications? The kind that let us go much faster than we should, but might cause the engines to explode. Might? Definitely will, if we push them hard enough. Sunmi grinned. Perfect. And the special cargo we loaded back at Earth? All secure in the cargo holds, though Minsu keeps asking if he can test the new combustion system. Tell him to wait until we find some targets. In the observation deck, the delegates watched as both fleets moved into position. The Kalthari Doomspheres advanced in perfect formation, their dark surfaces gleaming with energy fields that could deflect most known weapons. Behind them came support vessels from 6 other species, creating an impressive display of galactic military power. The human fleet looked like a collection of cargo haulers and mining ships that someone had decided to arm with whatever weapons they could find. "This should be instructive," Admiral Zeth of the Kalthari Empire commented. "Space combat requires precision, coordination, and respect for the laws of physics. There is no room for the chaotic methods they used in the planetary assault." "Agreed," said Ambassador Yila of the Moran Collective. "In the void, proper tactics and superior technology will prevail." The battle began with both fleets at maximum weapon range. The Kalthari Doomspheres opened fire with their reality-warping cannons, creating tears in space that should have disabled the human ships immediately. Instead, something impossible happened. The human fleet accelerated directly toward the incoming fire while broadcasting audio signals across all communication frequencies. The signals were music, loud, aggressive music with a heavy beat that seemed designed to interfere with normal thought processes. "What is that noise?" Admiral Zeth demanded, covering his auditory sensors. "Analysis indicates it is a form of human cultural expression called rock and roll," the monitoring AI reported. "Specifically songs about warfare, victory, and something called heavy metal. Turn it off." Unable to comply, the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies simultaneously. In the human fleet, Sunmi was conducting the battle like a musical performance. "Boram, increase engine output to dangerous levels. Minsu, prepare the special cargo. Everyone else, remember what we practiced." "The ramming maneuver?" asked Captain Junho Park from another ship. "The ramming maneuver with style," Sunmi corrected. The human ships continued their headlong charge toward the enemy fleet. As they closed distance, they began doing something that violated every principle of space combat. They started breaking formation and flying in seemingly random patterns while their music grew louder. "They are going to ram us," Admiral Zeth realized with horror. Impossible. Ramming tactics were abandoned centuries ago. No civilized species would sacrifice their own ships just to damage enemy vessels. I do not think the humans received that memo. The first human ship struck a Kalthari Doomsphere at maximum velocity. Instead of simply crashing and causing normal collision damage, the human vessel exploded in a massive fireball that somehow continued burning in the vacuum of space. "How is there fire in space?" someone in the observation deck asked. "According to our sensors," the monitoring AI reported, "the humans have loaded their cargo holds with experimental combustion compounds that create their own oxygen supply. The fires are self-sustaining." "That is insane." "Correct. It is also highly effective." More human ships began their ramming attacks. Each collision resulted in spectacular explosions that created expanding clouds of burning debris. The debris clouds continued to spread, creating hazardous zones that the alien fleets had to navigate around. But the truly alarming part was what happened next. As each human ship exploded, the crew members ejected in individual spacesuits and continued fighting in the vacuum using personal weapons. "Sunmi," came Boram's voice over the radio. "My ship is about to explode. Should I evacuate? Are you in range of that support cruiser?" "Close enough. Then take it with you." Boram's ship rammed the alien cruiser and both vessels vanished in a brilliant explosion. Moments later, Boram himself came flying out of the fireball wearing a spacesuit and carrying what appeared to be a modified mining laser. "How are they? Fighting in vacuum?" General Rax asked, watching human crew members use magnetic boots to walk along the hulls of enemy vessels. "Humans apparently spend considerable time training for vacuum operations," the AI explained. "They seem to view space as simply another combat environment." The battle continued with human crew members boarding enemy ships through hull breaches. They created with improvised explosive devices. Once inside, they continued their favorite tactic of setting everything on fire, despite being in a pressurized environment surrounded by vacuum. "They are welding explosive charges directly to our hull," Admiral Zeth reported as his flagship shook from multiple impacts. "Evacuate immediately," Chairman Vex ordered. "We cannot. The humans have somehow sealed our escape pods with some kind of thermal compound. They welded your escape pods shut?" While laughing, I can hear them through the hull. In the chaos of burning ships and improvised explosions, the human tactics began to make a terrifying kind of sense. They had turned the vacuum of space into an environment where their willingness to sacrifice their own ships gave them an overwhelming advantage. Every time an alien vessel tried to retreat, they found human crew members attached to their hulls, like persistent parasites creating thermal events that spread from ship to ship. "Min-Su," Sunmi called over the radio as she guided her own damaged vessel toward a doomsphere. "Did you ever test that new combustion system?" "Not yet, Admiral. Want me to try it now?" "Absolutely. Make it spectacular." Min-Su's cargo ship approached the largest enemy vessel and released its special cargo. Hundreds of containers filled with experimental burning compounds. The containers spread out in a cloud around the doomsphere before simultaneously igniting. The result was a fireball visible from 3 star systems away. When the battle ended 2 hours later, the human fleet was completely destroyed. Every single ship had been sacrificed in ramming attacks or used as delivery systems for improvised weapons. The alien fleet was also completely destroyed. Somehow, the humans had managed to achieve a mutual annihilation that the war games rules classified as a human victory because they had eliminated more enemy tonnage. "How do we score a battle where everyone died?" Chairman Vex asked weakly. "The humans eliminated 347% more enemy vessel mass than they lost," the AI reported. They also demonstrated superior crew survival. The Galactic War Games Committee had spent 3 weeks analyzing the void combat results. The final report was classified at the highest levels, but rumors spread throughout the galaxy about humans who fought in vacuum and turned space battles into explosive festivals. Chairman Vex decided that the humans needed to face their ultimate test, the Grand Siege scenario. This was the most complex and demanding competition in the war games. It typically lasted several weeks and involved millions of simulated troops. Most species considered it the true measure of military capability. The scenario was designed to be nearly impossible. A small defending force had to hold a barren planet against a coalition of 5 major galactic powers. The attackers brought orbital bombardment platforms, quantum siege engines, psionic battle mages, and enough firepower to crack a moon. Previous defenders had managed to last anywhere from 3 days to 2 weeks before surrendering. The longest successful defense in war games history was 18 days, achieved by the crystalline hierarchy using advanced energy barriers and mathematical precision. Colonel Min-Ho Yoon stood on a rocky hill overlooking the landing zones where the coalition forces would arrive. The planet was a barren world with minimal atmosphere, no vegetation, and terrain that consisted mostly of rocks, ravines, and underground cave systems, perfect for defense if you knew what you were doing. "Major Sujin Kang," he called to his second-in-command. "What do you think of our new home?" Sujin studied the landscape through tactical binoculars. "Lots of good hiding spots, plenty of hard surfaces for rigging surprises, and look at all these lovely mineral deposits." "What kind of minerals?" "The kind that burn very well when mixed with other things." Minho smiled. His team had spent the last week studying the planet's geology and chemistry. What the other species saw as a barren wasteland, the humans saw as a giant chemistry set filled with raw materials for improvised weapons. "How long until the attack begins?" asked Sergeant Dong-Soo Kim, emerging from a cave entrance with dirt on his uniform and a satisfied expression. 3 hours, Minho replied. "Did you finish the tunnel system?" "Oh yeah, we have passages connecting. Every major defensive position, plus a few surprises for anyone who tries to follow us underground." "What kind of surprises?" "The kind that involve fire and make loud noises." The human defensive force consisted of only 200 soldiers facing an attacking coalition of over 50,000 troops. By every tactical analysis, they should have been overwhelmed in the first hour. But the humans had spent their preparation time doing something unprecedented in military history. They had turned an entire planet into a weapon. In orbit above the planet, the coalition forces made their final preparations. Admiral Koth of the Zenthi Federation commanded the assault fleet from his flagship. Around him, representatives from 5 species coordinated the largest military operation in war games history. "The humans have had 72 hours to prepare," he announced. "Intelligence reports indicate standard defensive positions around the primary landing zones. We should achieve victory within 6 hours. What about their unusual tactical preferences?" asked General Yex of the Moran Collective. "This is a siege scenario," Admiral Koth replied. "There are limits to how much damage a small force can cause, regardless of their creativity with incendiary devices." The assault began with orbital bombardment. Energy beams rained down from space, targeting every human position detected by the Coalition's advanced sensors. The barrage lasted for 30 minutes and should have eliminated most of the defending force. When the bombardment ended, the Coalition forces began landing. 50,000 troops descended from orbit in assault craft, expecting to find crater-filled wasteland and scattered human survivors. Instead, they found something that defied explanation. The entire planet was on fire, not just burning in a few places, but actually on fire across entire continents. The rocks themselves seemed to be burning with flames that spread like liquid across the landscape. The sky glowed orange from thermal emissions and the air shimmered with heat distortion. "How is the planet burning?" Admiral Koth demanded from his command ship. "Analysis indicates the humans have somehow ignited naturally occurring mineral deposits across the planetary surface," his science officer reported. "The chemical reactions are self-sustaining and spreading." "That is impossible. Nevertheless, it is happening." The Coalition landing forces found themselves deploying into an environment that resembled the inside of a furnace. Their advanced armor protected them from the heat, but the visual distortion made targeting difficult and the thermal interference disrupted their communication systems. Then the humans appeared. They emerged from underground positions that had somehow remained cool despite the planetary inferno raging above. Each human soldier was equipped with gear that seemed designed specifically for fighting in extreme heat conditions. More disturbing was their attitude. While 50,000 alien soldiers struggled with environmental challenges and equipment malfunctions, the humans seemed to be having the time of their lives. "Minho," came Sujin's voice over the radio. "Did you see that beautiful explosion when the Kalthari troops landed in Sector 7? Hard to miss," Minho replied from his command bunker. "Think we used enough thermite in that area?" "Maybe not enough. Want me to add more?" "Always add more." The Coalition forces attempted to advance through the burning landscape toward the human positions. This proved more difficult than expected, as the humans had spent their preparation time creating what could only be described as the galaxy's most elaborate death trap. Every hill concealed weapon systems that created large thermal events. Every valley had been preloaded with combustible materials that ignited when Coalition troops approached. The cave systems were filled with surprises that involved fire, loud noises, and structural collapse. Most disturbing of all, the humans themselves seemed to appear and disappear through tunnel networks that connected across the entire planet. They would emerge from underground, create massive explosions, and vanish before Coalition forces could respond. "They have turned the entire world into a weapon," General Rax observed as his enhanced soldiers reported impassable fire barriers blocking every advance route. "How do we fight an entire planet?" asked Commander Yila of the Moran Collective. "We adapt our tactics," Admiral Koth replied grimly. "All forces, switch to aerial assault. We will bypass their ground-based defenses." The Coalition deployed their atmospheric fighters and assault craft, expecting to gain advantage through air superiority. The humans had no aircraft and no anti-air weapons visible on their equipment lists. What they did have was creativity and an alarming comfort with dangerous chemistry. As the Coalition aircraft approached the human defensive zones, the humans triggered their next surprise. Hidden across the planet were launch systems built from mining equipment and filled with what appeared to be improvised rocket-propelled explosives. The projectiles were not sophisticated guided missiles. They were simple rockets that flew in roughly straight lines while trailing fire and making noise that could be heard over aircraft engines. But there were thousands of them. "Evasive maneuvers," came the call from Coalition flight leaders as the sky filled with flaming projectiles, launched from locations across the entire planetary surface. The rockets were not particularly accurate, but they did not need to be. There were so many of them that avoiding all incoming fire was impossible. Worse, each rocket seemed to be filled with the same combustible compounds that had turned the planet's surface into a furnace. When Coalition aircraft were hit, they did not just suffer damage, They caught fire and kept burning even after crashing, creating additional infernos that spread across the landscape. "Sir," reported Sergeant Dong-Soo Kim from his underground rocket position, "I am running low on the good stuff. Should I start using the experimental mixtures?" "What do the experimental mixtures do?" Min-ho asked. "Honestly, I am not sure. But they burn much brighter and make really pretty colors. Use everything we have." The experimental rockets created fireworks displays that could be seen from orbit as they streaked through the atmosphere, trailing flames in multiple colors. The coalition pilots found themselves flying through what looked like a celebration, where everything was designed to explode. After 6 hours of combat, the coalition forces had made no significant progress toward their objectives. Instead of advancing across the planet to capture strategic positions, they were fighting for survival in an environment that seemed actively hostile to their presence. The Zenthi phase warriors discovered that their dimensional shifting abilities did not work when the air itself was on fire across multiple reality layers. The Moran mind-linked battlegroups found that fighting in extreme heat while surrounded by constant explosions made mental coordination impossible. Most frustrating of all, the humans continued to appear from underground positions, create spectacular thermal events, and disappear before coalition forces could engage them effectively. "Status report," Admiral Koth requested from his flagship. "We have suffered 30% casualties and achieved 0% of our objectives," came the response from ground commanders. "The humans have turned this into some kind of burning nightmare where nothing works the way it should." "What are our options?" "Retreat or send more troops." Admiral Koth considered his choices. The Wargames rules allowed him to request additional forces, but doing so would be an admission that 5 major galactic powers could not defeat 200 humans on a single planet. "Send reinforcements," he decided. "Double our ground forces." "Sir, that would mean committing over 100,000 troops to what was supposed to be a simple siege operation." "Do it." As additional coalition forces prepared to deploy, the humans were celebrating their successful defense of Day 1 by sharing drinks in their underground command bunker. "Think we impressed them yet?" Sujin asked, reviewing damage reports that showed the coalition had suffered massive equipment losses, while the humans had lost exactly 3 soldiers to accidents involving their own explosive devices. "Getting there," Minho replied. "But we still have lots of supplies left, and I want to try that new idea about making the underground rivers catch fire." "Can you make water burn?" "Not water itself, but if you add the right chemicals to it, you can make some very interesting reactions happen." Above ground, the planet continued burning as night fell. The coalition forces established defensive perimeters and tried to plan their next assault, while surrounded by an environment that seemed designed by someone who loved fire more than life itself. In the observation deck on Nexus Prime, the delegates watched their screens in growing alarm as the siege entered its second day with no signs of human defeat. "How long can this continue?" someone asked. "The humans appear to have supplies for extended operations," the monitoring AI reported. "They also seem to be manufacturing additional weapons from planetary materials." "Manufacturing weapons from rocks and dirt?" "Correct. Our analysis indicates they are using local minerals to create increasingly sophisticated combustible compounds." Chairman Vex stared at the tactical displays showing a planet that now resembled a small star in terms of thermal output. "Has anyone considered," he said quietly, "that we might have made a terrible mistake? The Grand Siege scenario was supposed to test the limits of military capability. Instead, it was revealing that human limits might not exist." The emergency session of the Galactic War Games Committee convened at 0300 station time. Around the circular table, representatives from 17 species gathered with expressions ranging from confusion to outright trauma. Several delegates required medical attention for stress-related conditions. Chairman Vex called the meeting to order, while Admiral Zeth of the Kalthari Empire sat in the corner, occasionally muttering about fire and making involuntary flinching motions whenever someone used words like thermal or combustion. "We are here," Vex announced, "to discuss what our xenopsychology department has classified as the human problem." The holographic displays around the chamber showed statistics from the past year of war games. The numbers told a story that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. Humans had participated in 15 separate competitions. They had won all 15 competitions. Their victory margins were not close tactical successes, but complete domination achieved through methods that could only be described as controlled insanity. Ambassador Mira of the Alderaan Republic activated her presentation system. Our analysis teams have spent 8 months studying human combat behavior. The results are disturbing. The display showed psychological profiles, tactical analyses, and medical reports from species who had fought against human forces. Humans demonstrate a psychological profile unlike any known sentient species, Mira continued. They show enhanced comfort with personal danger, addictive responses to explosive devices, and what our scientists have termed weaponized creativity. What does that mean exactly? Asked General Kex of the Vorthak hegemony. It means they can turn literally anything into a weapon, Mira replied. During the urban combat scenario last month, Captain Dae Ho Kim's squad converted a food preparation facility into an armory. They extracted explosive compounds from their own rations. How do you make bombs out of food? Someone asked. We have been unable to determine that. When we asked the humans to explain their methods, they offered to teach us. The demonstration was excessive. Chairman Vex pulled up footage from the most recent competitions. The videos showed scenes that looked more like destructive festivals than military exercises. In every scenario, the humans ignored established doctrine, jury-rigged impossible weapons from random materials, and somehow turned every battle into what resembled a celebration where everything caught fire. Perhaps most disturbing, Mira continued, is their attitude during combat operations. Analysis of communication intercepts shows that humans maintain constant social interaction during battles, consisting primarily of jokes, friendly insults, and detailed discussions about which explosions look the prettiest. They are enjoying themselves, Admiral Zeth whispered, speaking for the first time since entering the chamber. They actually enjoy warfare. Not just enjoying it, corrected Commander Yila of the Moran Collective. Our telepathic readings indicate genuine happiness, excitement, and satisfaction during combat operations. They experience warfare as humans, experience recreational activities. The committee reviewed additional footage. In scene after scene, human soldiers could be seen laughing while creating massive explosions, sharing snacks during firefights, and treating the destruction of enemy equipment as entertainment. During the asteroid mining facility scenario, Mira reported, Sergeant Jin-A Moon was observed eating lunch while simultaneously operating 3 different improvised weapon systems. When asked about this behavior, she replied that multitasking made the experience more fun. General Rax of the Alderaan Republic raised his enhanced hand. What about limiting their access to materials? Surely we could restrict their ability to create these improvised weapons. We tried that, Vex replied grimly. During the stealth infiltration exercise, we provided them with only basic equipment and no access to external materials. They somehow extracted combustible compounds from their uniform fabric and used their own medical supplies to create incendiary devices. How do you make explosives from bandages? We stopped asking. The answers were too disturbing. The discussion turned to specific incidents that had traumatized various species. The Zenthi Federation representative reported that phase warriors were now requiring therapy after encountering humans who seemed to treat dimensional combat as a form of 3-dimensional puzzle game involving fire. They kept trying to set our alternate dimensional selves on fire, the Zenthi delegate explained. When we pointed out that this was theoretically impossible, they responded by proving us wrong. The Moran Collective had similar problems. Their mind-linked soldiers, trained for perfect coordination and shared consciousness, found that human thoughts were so chaotic they caused psychic feedback loops. Attempting to read human minds during combat, Commander Yila reported, resulted in 3 of our telepaths requiring extended medical treatment. One of them is still occasionally speaking in what appears to be human military slang and asking when the next explosion will happen. What about their equipment? Asked General Kex. Perhaps we could regulate their weapons and technology. Ambassador, Mira activated another display showing human equipment analysis. This may be our most concerning finding. Human technology is not particularly advanced, but their modifications and applications are unprecedented. The display showed before and after images of standard military equipment that humans had modified. Simple energy rifles had been converted into area-effect thermal weapons. Basic communication devices had been turned into jamming systems that broadcast loud music during battles. Standard ration packs had been chemically modified to serve as explosive compounds. They turned a medical scanner into a targeting system for improvised rockets, Mira continued. When asked how they accomplished this, Corporal Moon replied that everything was just components waiting to be used for something more interesting. More interesting meaning more explosive, Admiral Zeth muttered. Usually, yes. Chairman Vex stood and activated the main display, showing compilation footage from all human victories. The scenes played in sequence. Planetary surfaces on fire, space battles that looked like fireworks shows, siege defenses that turned entire worlds into weapons, and always the sound of human laughter echoing through the chaos. The fundamental problem, Vex announced, is that humans have redefined what warfare means. They do not fight to achieve tactical objectives or demonstrate military superiority. They fight because they find the experience enjoyable. That is insane, someone protested. Yes, it is also incredibly effective. The committee fell silent as they watched the final compilation. A montage of human soldiers creating spectacular explosions while maintaining casual conversations about food, entertainment, and whether certain chemical combinations produced better colors when they burned. We have identified several specific human behaviors that disrupt traditional military competition, Mira announced. First, their complete D. 6 months later, Captain Dae-Ho Kim sat in the captain's chair of the transport ship Determination as it cruised through hyperspace toward what his crew believed would be another War Games competition. The official invitation had never arrived, but humans were optimistic by nature and assumed the committee was just running behind schedule. The ship's communication system chimed with an incoming priority message. Dae-Ho activated the main display and found himself looking at Chairman Vex's familiar blue features. "Greetings, Captain Kim," Vex began formally. "I am transmitting this message to inform you of an official decision regarding human participation in galactic war games." The crew gathered around the main display, curious about this unusual communication method. Normally, competition details were handled through routine diplomatic channels. Due to your unprecedented success in previous competitions and your unique approach to military exercises, Vex continued, the Galactic War Games Committee has determined that human participation creates an unfair competitive advantage and disrupts the traditional educational nature of our events. Lieutenant Hyunwoo Park raised his eyebrows. Did he just say we have an unfair advantage? Shh, Jinny Moon elbowed him. Let him finish. Therefore, Chairman Vex announced with what seemed like carefully controlled relief, your species is hereby excluded from all future galactic war games. This decision is final and not subject to appeal or review. We thank you for your participation and wish you success in your future endeavors. The message ended, leaving the human crew staring at a blank screen in confused silence. Did we just get banned from war games? Asked Sergeant Dong-Soo Kim. Sounds like it, Dae-Ho replied, reading through the official documents that had accompanied the message. For being too good? That appears to be the official reason, yes. The crew exchanged glances, and then something wonderful happened. They started laughing. It began as quiet chuckles from a few crew members but quickly spread until the entire bridge was filled with the sound of humans finding genuine amusement in their situation. We broke war games, Hyunwoo managed between laughs. We literally broke military competition by being too effective. They had to ban an entire species because we kept winning, Jin-A added, wiping tears from her eyes. How is that not the best compliment we have ever received? Captain Dae-Ho activated the ship's internal communication system. Attention, all crew. This is the captain. I have good news and interesting news. The good news is that we have officially been recognized as the most effective military force in known galactic history. The interesting news is that we are no longer allowed to prove it in formal competition. Cheers echoed through the ship's corridors as crew members celebrated their inadvertent achievement of being too dangerous for organized warfare. So what do we do now, Captain? Asked Navigation Officer Bo-Ram Lee, Daeho pulled up the galactic communication networks on his personal tablet. Well, let me see what other opportunities might be available for a crew with our particular talents. He scrolled through diplomatic channels, trade dispute notices, and various requests for military consultation. After a few minutes, his expression brightened considerably. Here we go. The Rigelian Commerce Guild is having difficulties with what they describe as sophisticated economic warfare. They are requesting consultation from experienced military professionals. Economic warfare? Jinie asked. What does that involve? According to this posting, it includes trade route disputes, cargo protection, competitive market penetration, and aggressive pricing strategies. Sounds boring, Hyunwoo commented. Maybe, Daeho replied with a grin that his crew had learned to recognize as dangerous. But look at this part. They specifically mentioned that previous military consultants were ineffective because they lacked creativity and relied too heavily on conventional approaches. The crew considered this information. They want unconventional approaches? Dong-soo asked. They want creativity? They think conventional military thinking does not work for their problems? That is what it says. Another round of grins spread across the bridge. Captain, Jinie said thoughtfully, do the Rigelians have any specific rules about what methods we can use for economic problem solving? Let me check. Daeho scrolled through the contract details. No regulations mentioned, no banned tactics, no equipment restrictions. They just want results. And they think humans cannot handle sophisticated economic warfare? That appears to be their assumption, yes. The crew fell silent for a moment, contemplating the possibilities. Anyone know how to make napalm that burns money? Hyunwoo asked innocently. Not yet, Jinie replied, but I bet we could figure it out. What about improvised explosive devices that target trade routes? Now you are thinking creatively. Captain O. Daeho changed the ship's course toward Rigelian space. Set course for the Commerce Guild headquarters. It looks like we have found our next adventure. Are we going to tell them about our recent war games experience? Bo-Ram asked. Probably. Best to let that be a surprise, Daeho replied. No point in making them nervous before we even start. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, the crew began discussing their new mission with the same enthusiasm they had previously reserved for military competitions. Conversations drifted toward topics like strategic cargo interdiction, competitive market disruption, and whether it was possible to weaponize accounting procedures. Think the Rigelians will ban us too once they see how we handle economic problems? Dong-soo wondered. Probably, Jinie replied cheerfully. But by then we will have found something else that needs our special touch. What could be next after economic warfare? Diplomatic negotiations? Cultural exchanges? Intergalactic sports competitions? The possibilities seemed endless. Meanwhile, back on Nexus Prime, Chairman Vex received reports that the humans had accepted a contract with the Rigelian Commerce Guild. He immediately sent a priority warning to the Rigelian authorities, explaining in diplomatic terms that humans had a tendency to solve problems through creative applications of thermal energy and explosive devices. The Rigelians responded that economic warfare was a sophisticated intellectual exercise that required subtle thinking and complex strategy. Surely primitive humans could not cause significant disruption to advanced commercial operations. Chairman Vex filed the correspondence in his personal records and made a note to check Rigelian news services in about 6 months. He had a feeling the reports would be entertaining. 3 weeks later, the human crew arrived at Rigelian commercial headquarters and was briefed on their first assignment: protecting cargo shipments from competitive interference by rival trade corporations. So you want us to make sure your cargo gets delivered safely? Captain Daeho confirmed with the Rigelian trade coordinator. Exactly. Our competitors have been using increasingly aggressive tactics to disrupt our shipping operations. We need creative solutions that they will not expect. Define aggressive. Tactics, route interference, cargo scanning, competitive price manipulation, and occasional theft of shipping manifests. The humans exchanged glances. That is it? Hyunwoo asked. No actual combat? No weapons? No explosions? This is economic warfare, not actual warfare, the coordinator explained patiently. We compete through market forces and commercial advantage. Right, Gina said slowly. And you think our conventional military background makes us unsuitable for this sophisticated approach? Well, yes. Economic competition requires subtle thinking and indirect methods. The humans nodded thoughtfully. We understand. Completely, Deho assured the coordinator. Leave it to us. 2 days later, rival trade corporations began reporting unusual incidents involving their cargo operations. Ships attempting to interfere with Rigelian trade routes found themselves dealing with unexpected equipment malfunctions that seemed to involve small fires and mysterious mechanical failures. Competitive price manipulation became difficult when rival companies discovered that their computer systems had been modified to play loud music at inappropriate times during important negotiations. Most disturbing of all, attempts to steal shipping manifests were complicated by the fact that Rigelian cargo containers had apparently been equipped with surprise packages that created spectacular but harmless explosions when opened improperly. How are they doing this? Demanded the coordinator from a rival corporation. We have never seen economic warfare tactics like these. They are humans, his intelligence officer reported. Military background. Recent veterans of something called Galactic War Games. Military. Experience in economic competition? That seems unlikely to be effective, IR. 3 of our cargo interception teams have requested reassignment due to what they describe as unreasonable working conditions involving fire and loud noises. Within a month, the Rigelian Commerce Guild had achieved complete domination of disputed trade routes. Their competitors withdrew from active interference, citing safety concerns and unusual psychological stress among their operational teams. The Rigelians were delighted with these results and offered the humans a long-term contract for additional economic problem-solving. Excellent work, the trade coordinator told Captain Deho. How did you develop such effective economic warfare strategies? He just applied our standard approach to problem-solving, Deho replied. Find the most direct solution and make it as in